few weeks ago, I did 2 videos with my friend Josh Williams from Facebook where we talked about the 10 best Facebook posters. In those 2 discussions, we made mention of a guy called Vijaye Raji several times. Vijay has been one of the most influential leaders in my career, one of the most excellent product and engineering minds I've seen operate, and I'm crazy excited that he's here in Studio Z today. He's the CEO of Statsig, a new startup. Here I am rocking the swag he brought for me. And so, yeah, let's go talk to Vijay.
Well, thanks for joining us, Vijay. Awesome to have you here. Really excited to go through some questions I've set up for you. But first of all, I think you should introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Well, thanks for having me, Josh. My name is Vijaye Raji. I'm the founder CEO of Statsig, father of 2 kids, Seattleite. I've been in Seattle for over 20 years now. And I started Statsig about 2.5 years ago. And before that, I was at Facebook for 10 years, which is where I met Josh and Josh Williams as well, who you all saw last episode. And then before that, I was an engineer at Microsoft. So I've done my tour of duty in the large companies, and then I decided to take the plunge, just like you did.
So I used to work for Vijay in his org at Facebook, and he was one of the best engineering and product leaders I've ever worked for. So like little compliment for him there. And so that's one of the reasons I'm super excited. We also mentioned Vijay multiple times in the chat with Josh. And in particular, you have a poster in your honor. I think it's on my door here. So there it is, just down in the corner. We'll show it on screen. Has a picture of a shark in boxing gloves. It says, "Be Scrappy."
Yep.
And it has your name underneath.
Right.
So Josh talked about this a little bit, but let's get like the version from the OG. Like, tell us about that poster. How did it come to be? And what does "Be Scrappy" mean to you?
Yeah, to be honest, I really like the way Josh Williams portrayed it, and I really like the description he had. That got me actually thinking, like, when did this all start, and how did I come up to, like, actually really focus on the scrappiness aspect of building products and shipping products. I would go all the way back to like my Microsoft days when I'd worked on multiple projects. Some of them shipped, some of them didn't ship. And if you were to like take and distill the elements of like what made a project successful and what made a project fail, time was essentially a very important factor. The longer it takes for a project to complete, the shorter or the smaller the probability of that project succeeding. So if you were to like go out and like talk about like what does it mean to like get a project really in a short time frame, what does it take to finish up and get it out in front of people so you can take the feedback and iterate on it, it became very clear to me that the fastest way, the minimum amount of work that you got to do to get the product in front of people, because until then you're building in vacuum. The moment you start getting feedback, then you're no longer building in vacuum. You're actually taking feedback and fixing things the way people want your product to be. This all hit me like a load of bricks when I was building this product. It's Small Basic, Microsoft Small Basic. It was my pet project in Microsoft, where it was a product that will like help little kids as well as like adults to cut their teeth in programming, like just learn programming. So I belabored on this project for like many years, worked on it over and over and over, perfecting every little thing. And one day I was like, you know what, I'm done. I want to put this out there. There's so many bugs in this thing, so many different things that I want to go build. And I was like, this is it, I'm done. I'm going to ship it. I shipped it. Guess what? People used the product and they had tons of feature requests. Not one of them was in my list of to-dos. The most important feature request was localization. People from Spanish-speaking countries wanted the entire IDE to be localized in Spanish, and that was not ever in my list. So that was like, well, I could have spent the next 4 years building things that nobody cared about, nobody wanted. To me, getting that product out to the people was the most important thing that I did. 100%. And so it was like, great. So that subsequently just became more and more distilled into this Be Scrappy mentality.
This reminds me of a lot of things we talk about in Zuplo, like premature optimization. Like that's not just about performance, it's about like prematurely optimizing your product. Like you don't know where the problem's gonna come from.
Exactly.
It was also a big theme in many of the posters, I think like done is better than perfect,
Yep.
I think is like another sort of very aligned principle. So, If you got this being scrappy notion, it reminds me a little bit of the, there's a saying in startups about that, but do things that don't scale as well.
100%.
And so that, being scrappy, they feel very aligned. Like, do you have an example from your past projects you've worked on, or some examples where you feel like you've shown this scrappiness that might surprise outsiders,
Yeah, plenty of projects come to mind, but I'm going to pick this one particular thing because it happened at Facebook. Something the majority of the people, you all think that Facebook is a large company that you can scale any number of projects. This was during the Marketplace days when we first launched Marketplace. We had a spam problem, integrity problem, where people would put items for sale that would actually scam people. I'll give you one example. People would post cars for sale, and then very cheap cars that would be too good to be true, and then that would get people connecting with them, and then you'll send a deposit and you'll never ever see the car. And so this was happening in Marketplace, and so that was a serious problem we need to address right away. And we didn't have all of the tooling built in place, or the processes, or the integrity pipelines built in place. So but we had to solve it right away. And so we went into a war room, and the whole team went into a war room. And one of the things we did was look at all the keywords that people were posting. And we literally manually went through every single keyword and we listed them out. And we built a model all in Excel. I'm not kidding. We just opened up Excel. We just built a model out of it. And then we started writing code in place that would catch these things and highlight them. And when it highlights, it emails one of us. I think Vivek was the head of product at that time. Rob Masson was the data scientist at that time. We all got emails about anytime someone posts one of those things, we would go manually verify and then either approve it or disapprove it.
And that's at some scale as well. I'm guessing this is not like one or two posts a day. This is Facebook, right?
We were handling maybe thousands of posts, and we were doing this manually. I remember it was we made it into a game where on the mobile phone you will see having dinner, a ding, and you'll look at it and you're like, okay, well, this looks legit, I'm gonna approve it. And this does not look legit, I'm gonna disapprove it. And we were doing this constantly. And this is the most unscalable thing, manual thing that we could have automated, but the automation process will require, setting up a pipeline of integrity review. And while we kicked that off, we can't wait. We needed to do something. And so to me, that comes to mind as a very unscalable thing that you have to do in order for your product to be successful. And we did it. And now Marketplace is in a great shape. A lot of people use it. So those were the humbling early days of Marketplace where we had to do something like this.
That's a great example. So, the next question, and we talk about this again a lot at Zooplo, is when do we do something that doesn't scale versus, codify the approach and put it all in code, and, that's probably some ML model now that's doing it, I'm guessing, right? Yeah. When do you stop? When do you stop hacking like that and then make that transition? What do you look for to say, okay, it's time to stop, to stop hacking this particular problem?
I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that question, because I think there's always something that you're doing that is unscalable at the moment. And then as you're doing that, you having experienced the pain are in a very unique position to solve that particular problem in a more scalable way than anybody else. So that experience itself is valuable. So by the time you solve that particular scale problem, you're going to be dealing with another unscalable problem.
Wait a minute, so there's something really interesting in there, that the whole act of you manually doing this process has shown you almost what the requirements really are. Whereas if you just sat down beforehand and said, this is how we're going to stop these posts, it's a little bit like the original conversation, right? About what you said about be scrappy and putting things out too early. The less you put out there, the more fungible the thing you put out there in the world, and what's more fungible than manually doing work.
100%. The whole idea of the scrappiness aspect is you doing it by yourself, rolling up your sleeves and actually doing it is going to be a lot more informative, a lot more educational than you coming up with a solution. I mean, this is kind of also why at Statsig, we're always hiring leaders that are willing to like roll up their sleeves and get into the meat of it, actually solve the problem first yourself before you go hire the team to solve the problem.
Interesting. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I want to move on to another thing we talk about a lot at Zooplo, and this is a saying I got from you, and that is the phrase "code is cheap." And you know, honestly, I think I remember the first time I heard it, I had like a double reaction to it. That is, you know, it almost sounds what's the word, like antithetical to say that, right? Like engineers are very taught that like you write code, you write it once, you design it for the future, dry, solid, all this stuff. And then this side, it runs almost a little bit counter to that, right?
100%.
So go on, tell us, what does it mean? Code is cheap.
Yeah, so in order to understand that, my background is engineering. I spent 10 years at Microsoft learning the ropes of engineering, software engineering. At that time, Microsoft was my dream company. So you got to like understand where I'm coming from, because I believed that code, there's one way to write code, and this has to be beautiful. It has to be well thought out. It has to be elegant. The architecture has to be scalable and needs to like support things that you haven't even thought about today. But over time, you know, after picking up multiple products and running large organizations, it became clear to me, like as an engineer, if I can solve a problem through code, if it is a technical problem, I think that is one of the easiest ways in which you can solve a problem, because having seen problems along the lines of legal, privacy, problems along the lines of product market fit, marketing, those are all much, much harder problems. If you can codify something in code, I feel generally you're in a very, very good place. I also, a corollary to this is like, I have now formed another opinion, which is that by definition, any successful company or any successful product is going to have crappy, is going to have hacky code, which is like spit and bale wire. Because the reason for that is because no engineer or no architect could have foreseen how successful a product is going to be and built something that can sustain 10x, 100x, 1000x growth. Because if you have done it, you wasted your time. And if you haven't, then it's actually good, because now you're sustaining your growth by actually like doing whatever it takes to like keep that code running for the scale and the success you're getting. So
awesome. It's the same theme again, right? Like it's kind of like there's a repeating pattern here of you know, done is better than perfect kind of thing. Make
100%.
progress and learn, like fast iterative cycles of learning, right? In the real world. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so this was a question from Josh Williams, actually. I told him I was going to be chatting with you, and
Okay.
I said, I got any suggestions on what I should chat with him, and he said this. I thought, oh, that's a good one. And it says, why does speed matter so much? I mean, it seems obvious, like I could tritely guess at it, but I'm like curious on your side. You are Mr. Fast, like that is a thing. Like nobody moves faster than Vijay. So go on, tell us, why is speed so important?
yeah, so I think last time, you talked a little bit about this prioritization framework that I have.
Yeah.
The prioritization framework takes into account a ratio. In the numerator, you have what is the impact of that, and then you multiply that by what is the probability of actually shipping that thing. And then in the denominator, you have cost, and cost is expressed in the form of time. The reason why you put that in the denominator is like the longer it takes for the project to be complete, the lower the probability of that project ever completing. There's several factors. One is obviously time. Time kills projects. Time kills motivation. Time kills teams' appetite, because there's always new things that are coming up and teams get like distracted. And plus, in any given project, just like a startup goes for funding rounds, time is also part of the funding round. So the longer you go without actually showing any kind of like gratification, longer you go without actually yielding value, you're going to lose people. People's attention will be gone. People's trust that this project will succeed will go. And all of those add up. And if you lose morale, then you'll never finish it. So to me, this is why time is extremely important. Time to complete a project is extremely important. So I'm always supportive of like, okay, I will fund a project if the project has a shorter time span. Even if you take the longer, like, if you can take the longer vision, but then if you have to break it down into smaller chunks and each chunk is manageable and is delivered faster, it actually benefits your own team because your team's getting this instant gratification. The gratification is important, otherwise you lose momentum.
It takes me actually quite nicely into the next question. Actually, is I want to talk a little bit more about your rhythm of execution. You've mentioned team a lot there, and like how you fund projects and so on. So, how do you run? And you've been through every size of team right now. Like how big was entertainment? Was it like 800 people? More than that?
No, it was more than 1,200.
Oh wow!
I think
Okay.
when I was living, yeah.
So big teams, like whole company-sized teams there. And then obviously at some point Statsig was like 2 or 3 of you, I guess. I don't know, it was like pretty small. I don't know what the smallest sign was.
Very, very small.
But so how do you think about running the rhythm of a product and engineering team? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so to me, I'm a big fan of ceremony. Humans are very ceremonious creatures. And so one of the traditional ceremony that we do at Statsig is like every day at 2:00, we all stand up, we all get in front of a whiteboard, and the whiteboard has a list of all the items that everybody's working on. And then we just go around the company. We started when we were like 8 people. Right now we're like 60 people. We still do it. We'll continue doing it as long as it's physically scalable. But to me, it's important because 2:00, everyone gets in front. Everyone is talking about like what's pertinent, what's important in the company. That includes engineering teams, that includes product teams, that includes sales and marketing teams. And so everyone at that moment becomes accountable for what they are working on, and that also they share the progress that is happening in that particular work item. And when that work item is complete, we give a round of applause. It's a little bit of a celebration that actually comes through. So that, we have this daily cadence of every day everybody sees the progress that we're making slowly, little by little. That also gives me a chance to talk to the whole company. I share everything. Like we're very, very transparent in the company. We share everything about deals and everything about like funding rounds and stuff like that. That's one. So that's the daily thing. Then we do a quarterly planning. So this is the quarterly goals that we establish, and then we like keep track of the quarterly goals. And then each individual team has weeklies. So this goes back to the ceremony. So it's an important element of like setting up schedules and setting up a cadence where you're checking in on yourself, checking in on the team, checking in on the product.
I got some questions about that then. So actually, just little weird nitty things like, why 2 p.m.? Everyone does stand up in the morning. Like, what's the deal with the 2 p.m. thing?
One of our engineers
Best sense of start with some dude.
One engineer back in the day works very late at night and comes into work after lunch. And so in order to accommodate that, we set 2 p.m. And that stayed on.
Do you know, it made me think though, I was actually thinking maybe it's a good idea because in the morning everyone's a bit like low energy usually, so you're probably a bit warmed up, you're a bit more sociable, you're ready to clap louder. 9 a.m. is like a little early for clapping, right? I like it. I also like the point about ceremony. We have a little different setup at Zoopla. You're all in on being in location, right? You're all in the same office. You're all sharing office space. We're a fully remote company, and that dictates a little bit of our scrum time. I've got someone in Dubai that works on the team, so we try and
timing whatever works for you, right?
Yeah. But tell me a bit more about any other ceremonies you have at Statsig?
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty of ceremonies. I mean, like this is why I said like humans are inherently ceremonious creatures. Like one, remember when people get up in front of all hands or get in front of the entire company and then you welcome people, right? Hey, we have new employees. You welcome people. It gives them a chance to, number one, like the whole company gets to know who they are and puts a face to the name. In addition to that, there's an important element that we also tell what their role is. We tell them what the title is, and then we also tell them what they're responsible for. So the person that is actually doing the introduction is usually more senior, more established, has influence in the company. By virtue of doing this ceremonious ritual, you're transferring some of that influence to this person by subconsciously setting them up to succeed. So we do this all the time, right? So whenever, I remember when I when I came into the video org, Fiji, who was my manager at that time, she introduced me in front of all hands, and then she welcomed me and told everyone that I'll be the new head of video. And that particular ceremony is extremely important to set me up to take my influence at that moment and then proceed. So anyways, this is little things like this. If you pay attention, is actually like everywhere around us.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. It's very much like it speaks against the sort of the culture I've seen you build in organizations. It's little things that people wouldn't think make an impact, but they just add up. It's like the opposite of death by 1,000 cuts. It's like wins by 1,000 claps or something. I don't know what they're saying. Not that, but okay, this is great. I wanted to ask you about this as well. So, one thing that I think I found at Facebook in general, and certainly in your org, was it was quite a permissive place. Like we had a lot of freedom as teams. Do you run a similar shop at Statsig? Is it top down? Are you just stood there writing plans that you push on all the engineers? This is what you're doing today. More bottoms up. Like, how do you think about it?
Yeah. In general, we want to leave as much rope as possible, but also give a psychological safety net for everyone. So anytime someone joins Statsig, you have, I have this conversation with them, which is like, you have a ramp up period and you have a psychological safety net here because you're not here to prove your worth. You're not here to prove yourself on day one because, we've hired you because we believe you're doing the best. You're the best person for this role, and so we need you to be operating from a role of comfort. We need you to actually operate with firing on all cylinders. And you won't be able to do that if you're constantly under pressure to prove yourself. So we give a lot of rope. We let everyone come in with ideas and explore those ideas. Every quarter we run a hackathon, 2-day hackathon. We just finished one up, and that's one of those traditions that we actually take very seriously. And those hackathon ideas, most of them actually find their way into the product. And so this is not top-down at all. Top-down, it is important for the vision to be top-down. You can't have multiple visions. Vision has to be singular. It is important for the strategy to be established top-down. This is what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to achieve our vision. These are the steps we're going to take. And those things have to be top-down. The rest of it, the teams pick.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the question. So I was going to wonder, is there a time where you get more directive? You think you get a little bit more involved? Do you think of yourself as like a little bit of an editor in that role? Or tell me when it switches.
You know Rajiv Rajan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's at Atlassian now, right?
He's the master in this thing. So I learned a lot from him in terms of how you inject yourself. When do you inject process? When do you inject tools and systems in place? So he has this framework. I'll probably butcher the framework, but he uses systems, tools, process, and people. And those are all the elements that a leader has. And there are times you have to introduce a little bit of process. For example, a war room. There are moments when you decide okay, this is extremely important. This is not going to plan. There's a deadline approaching, or that our prioritization is not working. There are any number of reasons why you would say okay, let's go into a war room. We're going to remove all distractions, no meetings. This team is going to be primarily focused on delivering this. There's an exit criteria for this war room. We're going to get out of this war room by completing this. And that's a process. And you use that process when it's appropriate. Policies are another tool that you can employ. Vacation policies is a great example, or whatever the company is offering in terms of benefits. Those are all policies. You can use policies in order to achieve certain outcomes from the company. So I think definitely there are moments where I jump in. There are moments where I decide to institute one of those tools, and I learned all of this from Rajiv.
Rajiv was the engineering leader in your org, right?
Right. He's now the CTO of Atlassian.
Yeah. So he did all right. Okay, I want to switch back to Facebook stuff again. People seem to dig that. We talked about the posters, which are one of the cultural tools. But there was also, and I use them today. I know Williams does because we did it several times when we were rehearsing for the play that we don't need to get into. But
I love the play, by the way.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Thank you. What an experience that was. I don't want to say that because I don't want to steal it from you, but I think you'll know that there were certain notes that were shared around the company by usually by leaders that were quite revered at Facebook, and they'd write some memo that became part of the cultural doctrine of the place, and you would use these sayings all the time. So I wondered if you would pick a favorite, like from that. It can be one of your own, it can be someone else's, but take us through it.
So there was a project called Project Neko, codenamed Project Neko, which was actually the app install ads project.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give credit to John Ketchba, who was an engineer on the project. The project's mascot is the Neko cat, the cat that is supposed to give luck.
Mm-hmm.
So Ketchba came up with this phrase where whenever someone questioned some of our decisions before, he would say, "No sacred cats." So that's where it originated. And the credit goes to John Ketchba. I loved it so much that we actually made it one of our core values at Statsig. So if you go to the Statsig's value posters, one of them, we have 4 of them. One of them is no sacred cats. What that really means is traditions are traditions. They're there, and if you can explain why they're there in a reasonable and logical fashion, you're good. Keep it going. But if nobody can explain why something is done the way it's done, then you should question it. You should always question it, because nobody wants unreasonable, nobody likes illogical things in existence. So no sacred cats is a great way. It's a permission for you to ask, why is it this way? And if I can't explain in a good logical way, and if it doesn't make sense, then you have permission to go change it.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
and I think, and it's kind of it's a big trade-off, because it actually takes a lot of effort to constantly be thinking about this and changing things around. So it churns a lot. However, it leads the world into a very logical place.
Interesting. It makes me think of a lot of things. Actually, I think moving to the US, one of the things I learned, maybe it's just more being in we're not technically in Silicon Valley here, we're in Seattle, but that culture's around us, is this idea of challenging the process.
Yeah.
There's some established process, and mostly we just follow it like drones almost, and that's really a call to action.
Exactly.
I know Elon is a little bit controversial these days, but I saw a video interview with him the other day where he was talking about one of the problems with most engineers is if they're presented with some framework or something, they will just optimize it.
Yeah.
And they don't question the ultimate optimization is to remove that thing.
Yes.
They don't question the process or challenge the what did you say, religion? What did you call the thing? The ideology, I guess, that is standing in place. The tradition, that was the word. Yeah. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Tradition. Awesome. I love it. No sacred cats. I think I have a point where I'm going to ask you about your other posters. I think we're going to have to cover those today. Is there any ones cultural memes? It can be one of these notes that was popular, or it can be a poster that you didn't like at FB, that didn't jive with you? Were there any kind of exceptions where you're like, yeah, I don't really like that one?
It's interesting you're asking me this, because we were just thinking about what are some things we want to watch out for? What are some things that did not scale? This may be a little bit controversial, because one of the things that worked really well at Facebook in the early days but didn't work later on is bring your authentic self to work. It's a controversial topic, because I feel like the intention when Facebook instituted bring authentic self to work was very noble. It was because we want you as you are. We don't want you to be different. We want, whoever you are is who you are at work. And that's the relation, kind of you build relationships with your coworkers, and it yields, better results. And it did. There's nothing wrong with it. But over time, what happened was once the company gets large enough, you kind of start to have differing points of view, differing opinions, and all of those start to happen at workplace. And political inconsistent, but this is people with differing views on every single opinion out there are there. And that's actually natural. It's actually beneficial to have differing and diverse point of view. But when you bring all the authentic self to work, I I felt like that was one of those things that actually didn't quite scale as well as should have. So this is one of the areas where I'm like, okay, bring your professional self to work and bring, because we're all here to like get work done.
Yeah.
And we want to be like really nice to our coworkers, no matter what their beliefs are, no matter what their point of view are. We're not here to like have a debate, because I want everyone here to like row in the same direction.
Yeah.
So that's the one tweak that I'm considering making. It's a pretty heavy topic, but I think it's an important one to.
It is,
think
and
about.
it seems like it's adjusted with sort of the times. There's been like a lot of cultural sort of shift. But it's funny you say it because I genuinely remember not liking that one. I didn't know you were going to say that, but it was interesting. I remember it making me feel uncomfortable because I find in life, in any situation, in any environment, you adjust yourself a little bit to mimic other people, to communicate with them better, and that's just the reality. Like,
it's natural.
Work is my second place.
Yeah.
You got like first place is home, and second place is work, third place is like video games or whatever your
Yeah.
thing is. I don't want to be the same person in all those places.
Yeah.
It's not fair of you to expect that of me, and I shouldn't get punished for it or feel like I'm doing something wrong if. I very much agree. That's really interesting, actually. I guess it aligns. I don't want to get too controversial. It's not a political discussion, but with what Brian Armstrong did at Coinbase about how he had this edict around like there's no discussions around this stuff. We're a mission-driven company.
Exactly.
So you're walking that line effectively.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong in terms of like, look, it's not about like, you should not have these opinions. It's like, definitely have those opinions, but is the workplace the right place to have that kind of discourse?
Yeah.
Is the workplace the right, a place to have debates about those kind of like my belief, your belief? And those are the kinds of things that we're trying to avoid.
So I did have the question in here. Let's do it. We know that No Sacred Cats is poster number 1.
Yes.
Let's do the rundown of Vijay's favourite. I don't know if you want to put them in order, but your 4 posters. Tell us about the others.
Okay.
And send me some images so I can put them on screen on the video.
All right, sounds good. No sacred cats is one of the values, and so I want to like actually like take a step back and say like when we picked values, we stayed away from truisms. What I mean by truisms is like there's nobody that will say like don't be kind, or nobody is going to say don't be transparent, or don't be nice to people, or be honest. Those are things that I feel like are truisms. Whereas a good value actually makes a trade-off. A good value is a trade-off where you can actually have a discussion or a debate, and then you can bring that value in to like solve that debate. And the trade-off has to be legitimate and logical. So No Sacred Cats is one of them, which trades off fast-moving, established processes to like constantly question so you can achieve the logical endpoint. Find a way or make one. This is actually another form of be scrappy, which is, there are destinations that everybody is trying to get to. We're all trying to get somewhere. We're all trying to build something. And sometimes you find yourself being blocked to find the most efficient path. In those cases, find the way, even if it's inefficient, even if it takes you on a detour, because ultimately getting to the destination is important.
Yeah, I remember this in some of your... Do you remember we did that PM Con thing?
Yeah.
You came and presented for us, and that was in there, and you had a roadblock, and I remember that being on the slide. Yeah, love it. That's a great one.
Absolutely. For builders, by builders. So this is for Statsig specifically. We took the stance that we're going to be building for developers and product managers and data scientists. These are product builders. And we specifically told ourselves, the rest, there's always going to be distractions and randomizations for the product. So we have to keep focusing on that to eliminate that particular.
And is the corollary, because I think we do something similar to Zoopla, where we talk a lot about like we're by developers for developers. I mean, that's a very common word in dev tools. But in reality, when you look at the space we're in, we find a lot of the tools that are really built for like buyers and not the end user.
Yeah.
And so we're very centric on the end user and believe they're going to help us sell
Yes.
to the buyer. And that's how we think about the product decisions we make.
That's great. Yeah. Okay. So for us, actually this all came from like for developers by developers, but then we had to expand that because our product serves product managers and data scientists as well.
Yeah.
And then the last one is results over effort. So this is like really like focusing on the outcomes versus how much effort went into it. So this has got, we have our performance review cycle, and during the performance review, we actually use this quite a bit about we don't, how much or how long it took for something is not that important as long as the outcome is there. And so this is the famous 2 lines of code resulted in $180 million saved. So that is still extremely impactful no matter how lightweight the effort was.
Actually, just quickly on that last one, it reminds me a little bit of Don't Confuse Motion with Progress.
Oh, I love that poster.
Yeah.
That is a great poster, by the way.
Yeah. That was my number one choice. Josh had the final say, but it was his number one as well, so it was very easy.
It is.
I also like the poster. The rocking horse is just perfect,
rocking
right?
Horse.
Yeah.
So much so, we copied it. We literally copied. So our designers, we were like, okay, we want to express that in our own way. And then we came up we couldn't come up with anything better than that. We was like, you know what?
Yeah.
If that's perfect, we're gonna keep it.
Yeah. All the effort but going nowhere. Okay. So last couple of questions now. You did a startup.
Yep.
I'll let you pitch it in a minute and tell us what this Statsig thing is you keep mentioning. I love the name, by the way.
Thanks.
It's when I talk about, is that going to be Statsig? Well, there we go again. What's been the toughest part of this journey? We were just chatting before we started here about founding a company is not all champagne and caviar, is it? Tell us, what's been the hardest part for you?
Well, I haven't really shared this very much outside of small founder groups. But we started Statsig in February 2021, and we had an idea. We knew exactly what we're going to go build, and we had engineers and data scientists, so we started building. And so we built it. We built and launched a beta in about April or May. I don't remember, May of 2021. And then we waited. We thought if we built a great product and we put it out and we gave it out for free, that people would use it, and nobody came. 8 months into the product, we were kind of starting to worry because we couldn't give our product out for free. So I would go talk to so many people, people that worked on other startups, and say, hey, try out Statsig. Here, I'll give it to you for free. Just use it, try it out, because I wanted to get out of that vacuum.
Yeah.
I wanted to get customer feedback so I can start building based on what people want versus whatever we thought was important. And I couldn't. So that was one of our lowest points where we were pretty dejected. So we were wondering if we built something that nobody cares about, nobody wants. And so until one of the ex-Facebook product managers, Jeff Berklin, who used to work at Headspace, he reached out and he's like, hey, I miss the tools that we had at Facebook. And that was a light bulb moment for us, because we were like, okay, we were trying to sell this to other people that may not understand the value of Statsig right away. However, ex-Facebook folks will immediately get what we're building.
Yeah.
And the Headspace, when they tested our product, they liked our product, they wanted to sign a contract. That was a moment of relief. It's not like a jubilation or celebration. It was a moment of relief. It was kind of oh my gosh, okay, all right, we can continue on. So that was the hardest part of the journey during the whole finding the product market fit and finding one customer.
That wilderness period, I think they call it, right? Where you're just out there trying to...
the dip.
Yeah, it's interesting. if if you'd have been a YC company, you'd have probably closed by now, right? You wouldn't have made it that far. Yeah. It is. I think we had a similar while it took us to get to some sort of critical table stakes of features and just learning how to sell it before things started to take off for us. So we thought the same. It's have we built something? Have we built the world's greatest demo here that no one's going to use? A lot of empathy with that.
Navigating those days, you wake up and you're okay, there's still no more customers, and you're looking for the sign up page and seeing if anyone will sign up, if anyone will even try it out. Wow. Those are hard days.
Awesome. Okay, through those now though. So tell us this Statsig thing.
Yeah.
What is it? Where does the name come from? I think a lot of people will guess, but tell us all about it.
Yeah. So Statsig stands for statistically significant, and it's a term we used inside Facebook pretty liberally, right? It's is it Statsig is a phrase that you'll hear in the corridors all the time because everybody's looking at data. So Statsig is a feature management, experimentation, and analytics company. So if you're building new features, which you most probably are if you're a software company, and you want to roll it out to other people, you want to understand if the investment is actually going to be impactful for your company, your customers, your business, or whatever it is. And so that's basically what we do. We are able to feature flag. We are able to like turn and roll out new features. We're able to measure the impact of those rollouts and then give it back to you. So you now can have a measure of the impact of the work you've done.
So what's the, when I think about this stuff, and did you mention, that you sort of, it was based on a Facebook product, right? It was based on internal tools. Facebook being the king of experimentation. It is just an experiment machine, right? And hence why Statsig has been spoken in all the corridors. It's like how decisions are made.
Exactly.
How is it different to other tools out there? Like, Optimize is the one I perhaps know most famously as an A/B testing tool kind of thing.
Yeah. So when I decided I'm going to go build Statsig, leaving behind my Facebook job, I did my market research. I'm like trying to look like, well, are there tools as sophisticated as the tool set that we had access to inside Facebook? As Josh mentioned, we have this incredible tools that were built by some of the best engineers in the world over a decade. And it's matured so much and it's like gotten sophisticated so much that I realized that none of the tools outside had that level of sophistication or that level of like ability to like automatically do impact analysis. So it convinced me so much to leave behind my Facebook job to go start this company, to bring that level of tool set outside, because I believe that everybody should be using those tools. Everybody should be data driven and making those data driven decisions. That also helps them move faster. And so there's lots of tools out there, but I feel obviously I'm biased here, but I feel like the sophistication of the tooling that we build is far advanced than what's out there.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. I believe it because I think anyone who's an entrepreneur watching, you could probably just go to Facebook and look at some of their internal tools and ship products. Like actually, we found one that's a bit like Daiquiri that's called Popsicle. I don't know if you've seen that. They didn't know about Daiquiri. I'm like, oh, you copied Daiquiri, great idea. Like this is just what I want. And then what was the dashboard I think called?
Unidash.
Oh, yeah. I would love all those tools back again, They were designed for, I think, people like us, hands-on, willing to write scripts and
100%.
So good.
The whole spectrum of data ingestion, data analysis, and feature management, experimentation, visualization, insights, and intelligence. It was this set of tools. They all just worked.
Yeah.
They all just worked together. Scuba. Those are all fantastic tools. And I could imagine if you had access to all those tools and they all talk to each other, there's no impedance mismatch between any of them. Those are amazing stuff.
Yeah. So you worked at Microsoft. We didn't know each other then. Worked at some great places. And I always say Facebook is head and shoulders above in my head in terms of the products and engineering culture. And what better sort of symptom of that could be that their internal tools are just clearly industry leading and should just all be productized, probably, really. And that's what you're doing. So,
exactly.
So nice. Well, thanks for joining us. That was awesome. That was great. I really appreciate you coming, spending the time with us. Hope you all enjoyed listening to Vijay. We'll get some more folks on like this and talk more about best practice, product, engineering culture. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me. And it was great to be here.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Some great insights from Vijay there, and definitely one of my favorite leaders. But he mentioned a chap called Rajiv Rajan in the discussion, and good news. Rajiv, the CTO at Atlassian, will be the next guest here in Studio Z. So make sure you subscribe, get all the notifications, all of that good stuff, and come back, check out the next content where we look at product and engineering culture from some of the best people doing this stuff in the real world.